Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
We're back after the first ever Xi-an Grand Prix. It's been a great week of snooker. Another big week coming up, so plenty to talk about.
Very much so. Yeah, excellent week. Really good. And what an excellent winner, Phil, in Kyren Wilson. You know, I didn't think I and we would be toasting a Kyren victory this soon. Not that he's not a brilliant player, one of the best in the game, of course, but we know so often, not always. I was thinking Mark Williams had a win not so long after, actually, didn't it? So it's
right.
quite reminiscent of that. And he won the title last time in 18. But generally, there can be a hangover and it can last a season. We pretty much, as we saw with Luca, virtually. But what a way to cement your status as world champion, Phil. We just have to say from the top, so many congratulations. And if you win a tournament by beating Ronnie O'Sullivan and Judd Trump in your last two matches, then, well, it doesn't get more hats off than that, eh?
No, that's right, yeah. And I mean, you're right about how it's tough as a world champion to go straight afterwards, but it's not just that. I mean, Kyren's not really been a sort of nailed on regular winner throughout his career. He's won a few. Obviously now won the big one, but it's not like he was ticking off huge tournaments every couple of months like some guys are. So for him to get this under his belt so quickly after the Crucible, unbelievable. And the way he did it, yeah, Ronnie and Judd at the end, but all the way through, we'll get to how he came right the way through the tournament. It was a really tricky draw. So fantastic stuff. And what a trophy. I'll get that in early. What a trophy he picked up. Lovely big gold number.
Big gold number, brilliant. I thought of you when I saw it. I thought of how much I thought you'd probably like it, but also for me, it had a musical instrument element to it. It was like a sort of I don't know. That's just me. I mean, you're looking at me. You didn't quite think that. So maybe it's sort of half mad from me, but it looked like a sort of part of a trumpet or an oboe or something.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
Yeah, I don't know. That's what struck me. But yeah, he had it on his head as well, which is kind of quite a nice touch, I think. But yeah, no, it was kind of a nice trophy and nice celebrations as well, wasn't it? His brother there and the different people that meant a lot to him. And we say it before, he's such a nice guy, Kyren. There's so many nice guys in this sport, but he's such a cracking bloke, really. And you can't just help but just not be so pleased for him. And he's saying, the confidence that being world champion brings, but it's funny that doesn't happen to everyone. Everyone's different, of course, but it's funny that some players go into their shell and then maybe diminished a bit by almost the extra pressure. Kyren's saying, no, I think I saw some quotes from him. I was pleased to be on the TV table. That helped me. And, I mean, it's the sort of thing you put on it because you saw him winning it, but you almost visibly saw a slightly different sort of, almost even more ebullient, confident Kyren. And what I loved about Kyren was he was so attacking, and again, he referenced that himself. He was so attacking, and they are these days anyway, but he was almost letting nothing pass. He was just taking everything on. That must be so difficult when you're the opponent of that, especially when he's getting so many in. And it was a top final, wasn't it? We should say. It beat Judd Trump 10-8. I mean, it felt like maybe we were due one. I think one of our correspondents coming up later may say that, but it was excellent. To and fro all the way. 5-4 Kyren after the first session. Say a bit about that. I didn't see that first one, actually. I saw the second. I was glued to the second one. But that first one sounds very good, looking at the scoring. 54, 58, 135 and 75 from Kyren. And 114, 62 and 76 from Judd. Then to and fro. Judd was 7-6 ahead. Such a big frame, the 14th. Really long one. More than 30 minutes. May have come up towards 48 minutes, actually. Kyren won it. Then Judd, to his credit, straight out, bang, with a 104. That was 8-7. Kyren with a 54 to help him to 8-all. Then it was anybody's, clearly. Next frame was huge. Both players had loads of chances. The nerves really started to take hold there. Kyren won it. And do you know what? I was so impressed with the way Kyren played in that last frame when he won it. Because he won it eventually with an 89. But before that, he must have had 3 or 4 sort of nibbles at trying to win it. Couldn't quite do it. But what I loved is, and you get the commentators will often say this, and Selby one that comes to mind, he was getting over disappointments and not really getting in, playing a good safety. He was leaving Judd in all sorts of trouble every time. It was a textbook way to win it. And, just what can you say apart from so impressive?
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it was good throughout. And yeah, that's right. It just sort of continuing to play the right shot at the right time under what must have been big pressure. It's a huge final. I know it's a brand new tournament, but big money, and especially like we said at the start, it's sort of the pressure to perform as world champion. But he's brushed that aside very, very quickly and looked very good. And especially to beat a man in the form that Judd's been in, he's looked just sublime this season so far. That's his first loss, and he took some beating. So yeah, just thoroughly impressive from Kyren, and we must say thoroughly impressive from Judd to reach his second final in 2 events this season. He'll be really annoyed to lose that, and that's the standards he sets for himself. But it's still a great return.
It's a brilliant return, absolutely right. He just continues to look at times imperious and very difficult to stop. And he was rightly favourite for that final. Big favourite, actually, without the listeners. I presume a lot of them listeners, or at least fans of the Twitter service. Not really difficult to tell exactly, but all kinds of snooker people would have voted. And it was 70 odd for Judd, which is a bit too much, really, to be honest. And Kyren didn't get a lot of support before the semis either, actually. So, but maybe in fairness, it's that thing. Back to you, Phil, because we've got an animal magic moment here, and we have got YouTube watchers now. Someone's joined us.
Yeah, not often. We say sometimes hear my animals, not often they actually come on screen. So here's Abdi the cat. He's a big fella. He's come to say hello. He'd be like a Bond villain now, just stroking my cat in a chair.
No, yeah, sorry about that, but nice moment there. Our feline friend making an appearance. But yeah, it was. Maybe it's that thing that you said he's not that regular winner, which is kind of fair. And actually, snooker time moves on so quickly. You forget that maybe a few months ago we were like, oh, Kyren hasn't done anything for quite a long time, really. That's blown out the window now. And in fact, it's 7 ranking events for Kyren now. And that pulls him clear of a kind of stalemate with a lot of players on 6. And it's quite telling, I think. One ahead now of Ken Doherty, Stuart Bingham, Stephen Maguire, and Ali Carter. And I think he's 15th on the all-time list now. And the 2 above him with 9 won't be getting any more, Phil. That's John Parrott and Peter Ebdon. So I did think a good target now would be 10. And that's, way it's going. It may not be too far away, but yeah, just an excellent week for him. And you mentioned quite rightly, but when we perhaps go back to the sort of more the start of the week in China, we should probably start with Kyren, because he sort of played well all the way through, didn't he, really? Beat Haris Tahir 5-2 on day 1. And we know what Haris Tahir's been doing so far this season. So that was a kind of tricky opener. And maybe I'll have a look at some quick other highlights from that day. Well, Alfie Burton beating Ding Junhui 5-4 was an absolute cracking win for Alfie. I noticed he won a World Seniors event, actually, a race to the Crucible event. I was having a look at Alfie's Twitter, reminded me of that, in Reading. And then he's seen the picture of a relaxed player, actually, by the swimming pool and enjoying himself out there. And but yeah, it's paid dividends. What a win against, obviously, always a hero in China in Ding. And mentioned with Sonny Akani beat John Higgins 5-4. You mentioned Sonny before, I think last time, what a good results he's getting so far this season. Well, 5 half centuries there for him. And no centuries for Higgins, still on 998. He's been stuck there for quite a few weeks now. And early wins for Judd Trump and Monty O'Sullivan against Ma Hei Long and Wang Yuchen, respectively, both 5-0. So maybe back to you now, a lot of my voice there. But yeah, I say Kyren hard all the way through. But Alfie Burden beating Ding's a result that took the IA.
Some result for Alfie. That was on the main table, which Alfie won't get to play on much. But he looked great at points there. He's one of these guys who's been around forever, hasn't he? He's never really made much of an impact sort of deep in tournaments. But then sometimes you'll see him sort of sauntering around the table, knocking in these breaks, and you think, oh, he looks so good. And yeah, brilliant result. Ding knocked in a century to take that to a decider. So for then Alfie to get over the line, it's brilliant stuff. But a bit of a nightmare result for Ding, all being told. But great stuff for Alfie. And yeah, that Carney Higgins match went deep into the night over here. I'm not sure what time deep into the night over there. Sorry, it was going very late, much later than the the other games were going on here. But great win for Sonny, who's had a brilliant return to the tour so far. Been very, very impressive. Another one that went on for ages was Matt Selt beating Joe O'Connor 5-4, and that reminded me of the night I was at the Judgment Day at the EIS before the World Championships, when their game was going on much, much longer than anything else, to the point where the coverage had stopped and the live scoring had stopped, and we were sat in the little press room, 20 feet away from the game. We still didn't know what was going on, and their game was sort of dragged off and put back on there. So something about those two, they like going on for a little while. But it was Selt that came through, and obviously he went on to have a really good run. But yeah, then Kyren went on from there. I mean, his next game was against Hego Kwang, who was rookie of the year last year. So another tricky one, but handled that very well. And it looked like Alfie Burden was actually going to carry on, because he took a good lead against Zhu Se, but ended up losing 5-4. And I suppose the big name casualty at that stage, as we go on, was Neil Robertson, who we think is looking something closer to his best, but another early exit for him, 5-2 to Yuan Sijun. So, yeah, I saw a little thing on his Instagram afterwards, and he was saying the conditions were just pretty difficult. He felt he played okay, but he was struggling with that. But it's another disappointing result for sure.
It is. I mean, right that we've been talking about, but he's had generally good results and looked good, but that'll be a setback, no question. And another setback for Zhang Anda, actually. He got beaten 5-2 by Graham Dott. Breaks of 80, 102 and 53 from Graham. This is on day 2 in China now. And, a match I know, I think you saw, because I saw you comment on it. I was a bit away, actually. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. So I saw bits and clips and some live bits, but not in any great depth. But I know Ronnie O'Sullivan Bulsu Revers was quite interesting, wasn't it? 5-2 to Ronnie. But 2 half centuries from Revers, and as I understand from you and others, he showed good form in patches, and maybe just a little bit of know-how lacking. So maybe I'll word with you about that in a moment. And then Sean Murphy beating Jamie Clark 5-0. I had to pick that out on day 2 because it's absolutely insane scoring from Sean here. These numbers don't seem real. 103, 76, 184, 128 in a 5-framer in the match. That is mad. I mean, brilliant stuff. And maybe I'll have a quick word about day 3 as well. Mark Selby beating Pang Jung-soo 5-4 in a cracker of a match. And Walsh just shows no 2 days are the same so often in this sport, because Sean Murphy was lost to Dominic Dale. What a win that was for Dominic. And it was 5-2, I think, wasn't it, actually? I haven't got the score down here, but I think on the top of my head it was. And Sean made 2 centuries in the 2 frames he won, which just shows how well he was still playing. But Dominic, yeah, great value. And, a score I have got down, thankfully, here is now Daniel Wells. So it's high time we mentioned Daniel, Bill, who had an absolutely brilliant week. Well, I checked through his results to make sure I had them all in place. Of course, I'd almost forgotten he beat Ali Carter in qualifying 5-4. That's brilliant enough in itself. He then beat Julian Leclerc 5-3 in his first match in China. And then he beat Tepchaiwan Nu 5-4 to get himself into the last 16. Really high quality scoring. Wells with 6 half centuries. So we were getting the picture, weren't we, Phil? That this was already actually a cracking tournament. Loads of good stories. And, I'm not sure what should be the headline. Maybe have a word about Bulsu Revers. And, people are saying that he is looking a very promising young player.
Yeah, so because it was this tournament he beat David Grace 5-0 in to get to this stage. So, that showed what he's made of straight away. And yeah, he ended up losing 5-2, and it relatively comfortable really for O'Sullivan. But he showed some really nice flashes. And I think what was sort of encouraging in a way was it was almost like the simple shots that was letting him down. It wasn't what he couldn't do. I think he was just sort of getting a bit carried away with the occasion, perhaps. There must have been nerves, of course. But the bits where he was scoring, he made a couple of breaks in there. He looked really good. So yeah, encouraging. And great experience to play Ronnie O'Sullivan on the main table in China so early in your career. So yeah, nice stuff from him. Certainly one to watch. And on that day as well, Dale, before he got to play Murphy, he beat Noppon in that round. So Dominic Dale is really sort of the back half of last season when he had that nice run in the Welsh, then got to the Crucible. He's really continuing that form. I know he spoke about how this is most likely going to be his last season, but he's showing his best form for a long while, really. So I think it's injuries and stuff that are catching up with him, that he said he's going to jack it in at the end of the campaign. But his form's as good as it's been for some time. So you never know. Maybe he'll think about that one again. But yeah, Daniel Wells, he's one of those players that knocking around in sort of the bottom half of the rankings or even off tour recently, but he looks really good at times. Like it's just solid player. Like he can do a bit of everything. It's just one of those. I think about so many players that are like that, who it's just some confidence can make the huge amount of difference. And this run in China may well have turned it round for him, and he might go on to have a great season. Because obviously that's a standout run. We'll get to where he got to eventually. But yeah, Kyren again, continuing his tricky run through. Ricky Walden in the third round. Not easy there, but he beat him 5-3. And Zhu Su, we haven't mentioned him yet, I don't think. He got an even bigger win later, but he won all his matches in this tournament as he went through 5-4. And at this round, it was beating Stuart Bingham, having beaten Burden before. So, yeah, no, fine run from him too.
Yeah, there was loads happening, wasn't there? Yeah, I was sorry to see those quotes from Dominic. Is it his hands and fingers, I think, partly?
You mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah. I think he's struggling on a few sort of physical levels, isn't it, really? Doesn't sound like he changed his mind either. It sounds like that's it. I'm sort of done. I mean, you never know this game, but yeah, maybe that could be the sort of thing. He said, I'll try and enjoy it as much as I can, which again seemed like a downbeat way of saying it. But then if he's, getting good results, like any snooker player or sports person, you will, of course, enjoy it more. And yeah, so yeah, loads going on at that stage. Yeah, and of course, Daniel Wells, which I should say, your article, which must have been getting on for nearly 2 years ago now, is absolutely, telling at any time. But to look at it now, as I did actually earlier today, you, of course, asked him about Ronnie O'Sullivan's infamous comments, where Ronnie kind of did do him down, really, I think, didn't he? He sort of suggested that he wasn't a guy that was particularly likely to win stuff or get far as in the game. And then Daniel sort of gave a very interesting answer to one stage, saying, I forgot which result he just had. He just done well in a couple of matches, and he said, I wish I was talking about that. But obviously you did your duty as a journalist. But he opened up and sort of said it was bad. I mean, he used the word humiliating, and he also had some other struggles as well, I think, around the sort of COVID time with some issues in, some family sadnesses and problems. So, listen, they're all human. And sometimes, thanks to putting work from people like yourself, we find out a lot more about these guys. But, he has had his struggles. And you're right, he's such a good player when he's playing well. So it's really good to see. And as we'll see and talk about more, he got a lot further than that. And well, the mist was starting to clear a little bit, Phil. Moved on to the last 16 on Thursday. And then, as we tend to do, fill in a bit more detail from that stage onwards. Well, Judd Trump beat Jack Jones 5-1. That was, of course, a repeat of their famous Crucible match in the spring. Judd was the victor on this occasion. And what a win for Zhu Su, Phil. Yeah. But bloody hell, beat Mark Williams 5-4. That's impressive enough in any sense. But he was actually 4-2 down. He got it back to 4-3, then made a 77 for 4-4. And won it with a break of 109, which is a bit of a theme of the week, actually. Players winning matches with really decisive, often centuries. Kyren did it a couple of times, actually. And really, really good effort. And Williams has talked up Zhu Su himself. I think that's 2 from 2, isn't it? Which is a bit. I mean, not. I think it's
twice. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 2-0, as they would say in America. That's quite something. Not many players can boast that against the great Williams. High quality encounter, obviously. Barry Hawkins, Mark Allen. Barry winning it 5-3. Not the world number one anymore, Alan. It's now Judd Trump, who ended up being runner-up. And he hasn't had a very good start to the season, actually, Alan. But what I was thinking, as I was having a little bit of prep and thinking about the kind of things we talk about, I won't say too much because he'll probably go and win the next one. You never know with these guys at the right at the top like that. They haven't done too well. That suggests to me a win maybe around the corner. Who knows? Matthew Selt 5, Gong Chenzi 4. So it was 4-3 down late on there, came back to win it. Ronnie O'Sullivan, Hossein for 5. I think it's a trend with these two. Because I was thinking, Ronnie always beats Hossein. Then I look back and actually Hossein sometimes beats him and heavily. They're not very close ones. Again, it was 5-0 to Ronnie. And I think Ronnie wasn't at his highest down as most of the week, was he? But he may have been all right in this. Was this the one that wasn't on the TV table, by the way?
Yes,
I
yeah, I had
didn't.
this on a stream. Yeah,
I didn't mind that. I saw a few. I thought, no, that's. We know the arrangements of one table. It was Kyren, wasn't it?
yeah.
I didn't mind that at all. Breaks of 103 and 104 from Ronnie. So I was thinking that may have been his best performance. Just looking at the scoring. Um, Daniel Wells, two aforementioned players here. Daniel Wells beating Dominic Dale 5-1. Decent run for Dominic, should say. But that ended there. What an impressive week it was becoming, even more so for Wales. And then, Phil, you don't always need a get out of jail card match, but you so often do. This was Kyren's. I mean, amazing, beating Jimmy Robertson 5-4. And well, I wouldn't say I had no right to win it, but it was one of those where you think, yeah, that was the one with maybe a name on trophy moment. Robertson was 4-2 ahead and then in the balls early in the next one, but couldn't get it done. And Wilson made a 103 to get back to 4-3. Then Kyren made 82 for 4-4. Then Robertson was in charge of the decider, 51-0 ahead. Kyren snuck in and made a 72 to clinch victory. Great effort from him. And I've got some quotes actually. Kyren said that I was just trying to hang on to Jimmy. He played fantastic stuff. From 4-2 down, I just dug my heels in. When I got the chance in the last frame, I just decided to go for it and move a red off the cushion so I could clear in one visit. I think that's the confidence that being world champion brings. Being on the TV table more often helps me get more comfortable as the tournament goes on. Very interesting quotes, I think. Just shows maybe how the likes of Ronnie, Judd, etc., are often helped in that way. And we know that. Players have told us that time and time again on this podcast. And then complete the picture. I feel like I've needed a lot of stamina for this stage, Phil. David Gilbert 5, Mark Selby 4. David unbeaten for the season at that stage, kept that going. Top win over Selby. So loads of interesting stuff there. But Kyren Robertson was a monstrous match and what an ending, Phil.
Yeah, fantastic. And it's good that it was a great game because Ronnie O'Sullivan not being on the main table is a rare thing indeed. And if that had been a stinker between Kyren and Jimmy, then there'd been a lot of complaints, but it wasn't. It was a brilliant match. And Ronnie just had a very straightforward win over Hussein. What I saw of that, Hussein just didn't play well at all. So, yeah, Kyren against Jimmy was much the better game. Very impressive stuff. I mean, Jimmy Robertson's one, much like I was saying about Daniel Wells. I mean, he's usually a bit higher up the rankings, but one of those guys that just looks great sometimes. It's just a bit of belief, bit of confidence, and he could be shooting up the rankings even further. But yeah, I mean, of the other guys you mentioned there, Gong Chen Shi, we should give a shout. He's only 17 years old in the last 16 of a huge ranking event. So great effort from him. And yeah, very nearly beat Selt there as well. So fantastic stuff from him. That Trump Jones game, I put that on thinking this could be this after the Crucible and into this, the start of a nice little rivalry coming up here. Because they're just sort of chalk and cheese a bit on the table. And I thought maybe Jack could potentially start getting Judd's number. But it wasn't like that at all. Judd beat him pretty handily. I think Jones won the one frame he did win with a big old century. So it did look like it was bubbling up, but just didn't come to fruition in the end. Fine win for Judd. And yeah, great stuff from Gilbert to beat Selby. And he beat Gary Wilson the previous round. And he'd beaten Jordan Brown earlier, which wouldn't scream like an amazing result, but I think their head-to-head was 5-0 in Jordan's favour before that game. Never beaten him before. So yeah, another encouraging few wins for the farmer after a great start to the season.
I think I missed that Jordan one. Yeah, that's good run. Blimey. Moving on to the quarterfinals then on Friday. Kyren Wilson 5, Zeus 1. Breaks of 69, 50 and 115 from we're a right pair here. You with your cat. I'm extraordinarily dark. I know we see, this is so vain, isn't it? I say I'm not, it's all about, it's all fixtures and fittings, but I just seem to be very silhouetted. But never mind. We're predominantly an audio service. That's where the vast majority of people follow us, so they won't care. Ronnie O'Sullivan, 5, Matt Selt 4. Selt with 2 centuries, and actually one ball away from a third, which you clocked. But O'Sullivan scrapped for the victory there. And I like O'Sullivan as a scrapper. I've said it many times. Don't think he was at his best this week, but he still got deep. Judd Trump 5, Dave Gilbert 2. And that was battle of 2 unbeaten players at that stage. 2 breaks of 6 unbeaten for the season, that is. 2 breaks of 67, 52, and the 94 from Judd, helping into that win. And then Daniel Wells 5, Barry Hawkins 3. Another superb win for Daniel. What a exciting end to that 8th frame, Phil. Daniel sort of half looked like he'd blown it. I think Barry had got a snooker. Is it snooker or 2? Maybe only 1. But got that. But then Daniel got a hell of a fluke. I mean, it was just a huge fluke on the blue to get over the line. But yeah, excellent win. And maybe we should go on to the semis actually and talk about those. Kyren Wilson 6, Ronnie O'Sullivan 4. Ronnie got back to 5-4 it was 5-2 to Kyren. Really good scoring from him. 2 breaks of 74 and runs of 57 and 64. Ronnie got back. 1 fluked respotted black helped him considerably, but Wilson wouldn't be denied and made a break of 102 for victory. And then a comfortable win for Judd Trump in the other semi, beating Daniel Wells 6-1, breaks of 67, 64, 96, 63 and 99 from Johnny. Just couldn't get 100 in that match, no matter what he tried. But a very, very comprehensive win there and set up a brilliant final. So yeah, it always looked like a big guns kind of final. I know we had a few surprises, but there were so many big players that were still going through it. It always looked, didn't it, like we'd have a sort of summit meeting between 2 of the best known names.
I think that's my sort of favourite way of a tournament developing, is because you like shocks and you want some lower ranked players doing well, having a nice run. That's a great story, but you sort of want the big hitters deep on, especially in the final. That's a huge final between the form player at the minute against the world champion. And if it had been Ronnie versus Trump, same. But having Daniel Wells in the semi, that's great as well. So it unfolded beautifully for my money this tournament. It was really good. And yeah, I suppose that Wells win over, I know he beat Carter in the qualifiers, but that feels like ancient history. So that Hawkins win was really sort of, wow, what an incredible run this is. So it was a brilliant effort. And yeah, that Ronnie against Selt game was very enjoyable. Selt was playing some interesting stuff early on. I think some of his shot choices were labelled crazy by Fergal O'Brien in commentary. Certainly not anything Fergal would have played himself. Suggesting that he was sort of playing the man rather than the game and sort of trying to be too aggressive. And it looked like it may well not pay off. But then he really turned it around. He was banged in those 3 big breaks. And then he had a chance in the decider as well. So I guess frustrated in the end for him. But before the tournament, if he'd offered Matt Selt a quarter-final and pushing Ronnie O'Sullivan hard in that, then I'm sure he would have taken it.
That's a great line from you. The tournament unfolded beautifully. If only that could be said about life itself, Phil, that it unfolded beautifully. Very rarely is that the case, let's be honest. And then we were left with the final, Phil. Judd Trump against Kyren Wilson. And we always thought it would be good, but then there are times you think that and it ends up being like a 10-4, 10-5 and a little bit of a sort of damp squib and disappointment. That wasn't the case. Brilliant final. Kyren winning it 10-8. Congratulations, as you say, to Judd for getting to another final and for Kyren for winning it. And who knows what he'll do this season now. My goodness, the snooker season is his oyster, Phil. We're still in August and already got a big win on the board. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on from there. We'll continue to talk more Xi-an Grand Prix in a moment, but I think we've done about half an hour. So we should say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalf. I wasn't a prolific watcher, Phil, but every time I went to Matchroom Live, it worked for me. I've got to be honest. I didn't have problems. I clicked it. And it was clicked it, Grandad. Clicked it on the old interweb, Phil, and it was there for me. But I didn't believe others did, in fairness. And I did see that at the start of the final, there were some issues with the streaming. People couldn't get the start of the coverage of the final. And a lot of people. So there obviously were issues. But listen, you say as you see. For me, it was fine. Stephen Hallworth and Fergal O'Brien, of course. They're good company, weren't they? Yeah. Nice team. Good stuff it was. And the crowds weren't great at times, were they? Early. I mean, it was fairly typical in some ways. It just got bigger, really. But
Mm.
at times you couldn't always see the arena, but it's more sort of photographs I was looking at. So God, that is empty. But nice looking arena, I have to say, and obviously a great city. So generally we say congratulations to all those who put the tournament on. And yeah, I didn't mind that streaming coverage at all. Did you have any problems with it?
No, it worked fine for me. I know people were saying it was no good on an app, so if you had to be set up on your laptop or whatever for it. But yeah, I mean, last week I was sort of starting work at 7 at home, so it was just couldn't have been better for me, really. I just had it on one of my desktop screens, and it was perfect. So yeah, no complaints from me on that front. And obviously, you'd rather it wasn't a perfect scenario to have it in that way, but um, it being freely available to everyone is pretty good. No complaints from me on that front. I spoke to someone from World Snooker who said it was offered to Eurosport, but because of the time difference and they had a lot of other stuff at the time, they didn't want to add it to their package. World Snooker's policy, they said that I was told that they didn't want to go and try and sell one single event to another TV provider because that's just not how they work. So then they could have put it behind a paywall on Matchroom, but they decided to give it free so it could be as freely watched in this situation as possible. So no complaints from me on that front. And yeah, I agree. Fergal and Stephen were really good. I thought, considering just the same two throughout the whole tournament, that's a lot of the same two voices, but didn't really feel like that. Enjoyed them throughout. Yeah, the crowds sometimes quite hard to tell off the telly, but definitely at times they weren't great. And that arena was vast, and it was obviously because we didn't see any of the other tables, it was impossible to tell what they were like on the other tables. But I did see some players saying that the arena itself was great, and as always, they looked like they were being looked after beautifully in China. They really get treated very, very well at those events, which is great. Although I did hear some complaints about the conditions, hard conditions, very hot, heavy tables. Although certainly the commentary, and it appeared, I didn't need to be told this really, but certainly the commentators made it clear that they felt the pockets were fairly generous at times. One of those where people were happy to take balls along to the black cushion in this event where they maybe wouldn't in other events, those kind of pockets. But I suppose maybe that evens out with some trickier conditions elsewhere. But yeah, so quite a lot going on there, really. But yeah, it looked amazing, really. That arena in general, enormous, and in an incredible place. We heard. I don't really need to hear the words "Terracotta Warriors" anymore for a while. They got a lot of mentions, but I would love to see them. I'm glad people went and took their time out while they were there to go and have a look at them. But yeah, interesting. We'll see how it comes. I hope it'll be back next year. So we'll see what the coverage will be like next time. Maybe I assume I don't know, but maybe it'll be in Eurosport next time, or there'll be a different way of doing it. I can't imagine this is the plan forever, but it wasn't the worst plan for now.
Well, that was an absolute minefield of great information there, Phil. And I presume what you're referring to there generally with television, and I've seen this over the years with all manner of sports, including football. Actually, they don't always like. This came up when there was talk at some stage of free-to-air having a few Premier League games, and I think what you're referring to is something similar. They don't really like these sort of random sort of matches once every sort of 6 weeks, as I think it was going to be at one time, don't really tell a story. They're too sort of one off. Whereas you get someone like ITV, for example, or the BBC, they have a sort of, it feels like a series of events going through the season. They tell the story, and that's kind of obviously preferable for the May.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I'm not privy to exactly the reasoning behind it, but that's what I thought as well. That made sense to me. And that's how it came to be on this. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I saw too many complaints. You'll see some complaints about anything, so there definitely were some. But as far as the modern viewing experience of streaming stuff, as I say, the fact that anyone could watch it for free, you can't complain too heavily.
That makes sense. We have some correspondence, don't we, on Xi-an? Let's go to that. And first to Mark Williams. Brackets, not that one. It's actually not that one or that one, because there's another Mark Williams in snooker, isn't there? as well. We see regularly at tournaments. But anyway, it's neither of those two, Mark Williams. It's the third one. Hello, Nick and Phil. Firstly, it was great to meet you and have a chat in Sheffield this year. Hopefully catch you at another tournament sometime. If you are ever in the Scottish Isles again, Nick, it's my shout for a coffee. Yeah, I really remember meeting Mark. A very pleasant time spent in Sheffield. Just thought I'd give you an email with some thoughts on the Xi-an Grand Prix. It's been really enjoyable getting up early and turning on some snooker, along with a morning coffee and overnight. Is that overnight something there? I'm not sure what that is.
Overnight oats, yeah.
Overnight oats. Oh, brilliant.
You make your porridge at night and then you leave it in the fridge and they're very nice in the morning.
You see, I can't get my head around that. We are different humans. I mean, I would never be organised enough to do that. That's shocked me. That's good. I didn't know people ever did something like that. That's amazing. That's amazing.
My better half used to do that. I don't think I was ever organised to do it, but she made it. And it was always a lovely treat.
Wow. I mean, I know people do packed lunches. That blows my mind enough as it is, but this is another thing, another level. Can't think of a much better start to the day. The timings from China were good as I was off shift, but not so good for anyone working. The number of frames were good, and seeing a game first thing in the morning, then another over lunchtime in the UK worked out good. Some good games watched. The final was a great battle, as to be expected. I did think Judd would have the upper hand, as I'm sure the majority also did, but a few mistakes by him and a solid performance by Kyren held him a worthy winner. Kyren is a force to be reckoned with now, which is also evident throughout Sheffield. Some great safety play also, really impressive. Yeah, good point. His safety was really good, particularly in that closer stages, that final. That cue ball was often glued to the cushion, really the bolt cushion. I enjoy your podcast every week and listen to all the snooker podcasts, usually whilst out walking along a beach or moorland, or else when I'm in the car. I've been finding myself then re-watching, listening to your YouTube podcast recording when I've run out of snooker podcasts for the week. Keep the great podcast coming. Cheers for now. Mark, what very kind words, Mark. Thank you for that. And yeah, nothing to disagree with there. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And we got a little bit more of that sort of talk coming up. It is nice. We didn't have it for a few years. It is nice to watch snooker at different times, actually. Yeah. I know we say it again, but it's really pleasurable to wake up. No snookers there. I mean, you get it at Sheffield at 10, but to get it really early and then lunchtime again, it's just a nice pattern. And yeah, Kyren, all-round game good. But, when he's in the balls, he's brilliant, brilliant to watch. Good break builder, but his safety, and that can so often be the difference, can't it? I mean, it's obvious thing to say, but, safety can be that kind of extra edge. And I think maybe towards the end, in some ways, it was.
Yeah, definitely. Especially when you're playing people like Ronnie and Judd that he was playing. You can't give these guys a sniff. So if you can really tie them up, then it makes a huge difference. And, guys, I guess if you're thinking about great safety players, people like Kyren wouldn't straight come to mind, but all these top players are amazing. Ronnie and Judd wouldn't necessarily come to mind straight away. Their safety is excellent as well. These guys right at the top of the game can do it all, and Kyren is now very much living at the top of the game. So yeah, I mean, he's a guy that's always had great belief. I've heard other players saying, I remember Gilbert saying it before they played each other in Sheffield. If I had Kyren's belief, I'd be, do a lot better in the game than he has been doing. So he's never been struggling for that, but it must be through the roof now. So yeah, he's going to be a hard man to stop this season. So here's Michael next on email. Hello, Phil and Nick. A rare Phil first there. It's usually Nick first. You're both so right about the fun of watching snooker at different times again in the UK after the years of not going to China for tournaments. It was great to catch some action in the morning before going to work, then checking again during my lunch break for some of the afternoon match. What a brilliant final it was. I think you guys have said we've been a bit short on really close finals in the last year or two. This was compelling to watch all the way. What a great world champion Kyren is proving to be already. An ambassador on and off the table. He played superbly at this tournament and was a deserved winner. I'm aiming to go to a few British tournaments this season, including the Masters, and I hope I get to see him play in his time as champion. I also like Judd Trump as a player, and you can't argue with his amazing record of winning events, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. But he still tends to fall short in the biggest events, and that's why he's only just in my top 10 players. I know it's a contentious issue, but I tend to agree with those who say he's not a true great of the sport until he puts at least one more world title on the board. Someone like Mark Selby, for example, is streets ahead of Trump, as are all the players of the class of 92. Thanks for the podcast. It's a must listen for snooker fans. I hope you carry on doing it for a long time into the future. Thank you, Michael.
Very interesting thoughts. And I mean, we've gone over the Judd thing. I've always tend to be in the camp that says that a brilliant player, generational player, actually. And yeah, his record of winning tournaments is extraordinary, actually, since he won that, Masters, pretty much the Masters before he won the World, so 19. But in the very biggest events, it's puzzling that his numbers aren't a bit higher. That's what I would say. When you compare to other guys of that level of talent and brilliance, he's just a bit low in the very biggest events. But he has time to put that right, of course. And you certainly can't argue in some ways with his policy of going for everything. It serves him well, for sure. And every time I hear Judd talk, he doesn't differ from that. He doesn't talk about, I zero in on certain events or I try and peak. He just wants to win everything. That's, who can argue with it when you've got the record he has got? Let's move on then to Lisa. Absolutely delighted for Kyren. He's consistently good and he has a great temperament. I knew he'd give Trump a good fight, and he did. He was definitely the better player in the final. Congratulations, Kyren.
And Angela, I love your podcast, along with Dave Hendon's. You're the best voices out there. What an amazing few months Kyren has had. He's always come across as one of the nicest and most genuine people in the game. I'm so happy to see him have all this success. Yeah, well, as you said before, certainly a very nice man, and you can't begrudge him it for sure. He's also incredibly hardworking, and yeah, thoroughly deserved. And it really whets the appetite, to see what he can do as world champion. I think this is already confirmed. He can't possibly be labelled as a bad season as world champion if he's already racked up a huge event like this. I suppose, if he didn't win another match, then it would be a bad season, obviously. But he's started incredibly well. He'd have to go a long way to make it a bad season from here. But what could he achieve? Could be anything, really. It's a great start. We've got Saudi coming up, which we're going to talk about. Imagine if he doubled up there. Incredible stuff.
Very much so. Just before I forget, it was a nice interview you did with Ivan Hercevich, actually. And I've seen a little bit of comparing with Luca in a negative way towards Luca. And I'm not sure I'm going to indulge that too much because I think, everyone's different. But what I did think was that, easy to say after you just won a tournament, obviously. There's a lot of hindsight there. But Kyren was talking with Ivan about, I've had my brilliant time. And it was almost like he was putting a bit of a full stop to it.
Yeah.
You get the feeling that some over the years, the famous Walker kept saying it was a pub crawl, didn't it, for Mark Williams and throughout the season, he never really stopped celebrating, did Mark, and others have done it their way. But you got the feeling with Kyren, he was saying he had some brilliant experiences. Remember, Chelsea was one. He's a big Chelsea fan, isn't he? I think he'd been to the club with a trophy. I think he'd been to Great Ormond Street and talking about how, moving and that was, and I'm sure it was, and other experiences he had now that don't quite come to mind. That he's had a brilliant time, basically. But it was almost like that's it now. He didn't say that's it now, but it was almost like I've got a business head. You could tell he was almost flicking a new switch back to sort of snooker mode. Tournaments coming thick and fast. So there we are. We'll see if that is the way. He did say, actually, he really enjoying himself though. Now I think about it as well, he's really enjoying, a lot of beers and a good time. But listen, you're only not many guys get to be world champion, and the first one. And another thing Kyren's doing, he's talking about the first one a lot. Can't like that. That's pure Kyren, isn't it? Especially
He's not planning this to be the only one.
Especially the first one. I like that.
Yeah.
And that Xi-an, I think, done. Unless you've got anything more to say, we enjoyed it, didn't we? It was good value, good winner, lots of good performances.
Yeah, no, it was excellent. Yeah, I suppose going back to sort of the coverage stuff, I think we're just so spoiled all the time because there was, especially when there was like Ronnie and Judd on the main table, their games are often over quite quickly. And then we're so used to just like, oh, I'll flick over to these other ones. And I did feel sort of there was an element of frustration that wasn't available, but I think that's just more that we're spoiled throughout the rest of the season than you can sort of have a pop at this one too much. But certainly, if other people felt like that, I certainly also did when there was some great games going on elsewhere and you fancied having a watch of that. But we're back to normal service coming up. But yeah, no, good tournament. Yeah, really good winner. Some great games. There was some interesting stuff on the sort of the politics of who would go on the main table, because there was that early game. You mentioned Zhang Ander against Graham Dott was on table one, which looked a bit odd when that was when Kyren was playing Hergo Kwan, and you thought, well, surely the World Champion should be on there. And I was speaking to someone who was over there and said that was when Ding was expected to be playing if he'd have beaten Burden. So they'd scheduled that for table one, and they sort of pre-sold tickets for table two, which was Kyren. So then they couldn't then move him to the main table. So it did look very odd, things like that, but there are sort of reasons for it that they can't move it around sometimes. But yeah, that's the pitfalls when you've only got one streaming table, then you can't see everything else. But yeah, this is minutiae now. But overall, very much enjoyed the tournament, and congratulations to the winner.
The whole podcast is minutiae in so many ways, Phil. Let's move on, shall we? Snooker's fourth major in Saudi Arabia will be getting underway on Friday. The full draw is available in a number of places, including a very useful, typically useful feature and article from you on Metro, Phil. I know you've got some highlights to talk us through in a couple of moments' time. I think it will be a sort of slow burner to some extent in terms of the bigger names will come in as we get further into the event type thing. And the very biggest names, I don't think, come in until September the 3rd. So that's getting quite sort of deepish into the tournament, isn't it? That's, I think, next Tuesday. So I say underway Friday, and we know it's that sort of staggered approach similar to the World Championship. We know that the winner will get $500,000, and the prize money is extensive. Runner-up 200,000, semi-finals 100,000, quarter-finals 50,000, and it obviously goes down. But still, the last 144 pick up 2,000, and then it's 50,000 for someone that makes a 147 break, with the total being 2,302,000. So obviously, immense riches available. And as I say, Phil, you've been looking at some of the matches coming up, and we mentioned before that these best of sevens are going to be an absolute scrap. I'm sure we're going to be seeing some really long matches in those opening days, eh?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's going to be edgy because, yeah, it's rare actually that first round losers get some money, get $2,000. So that is encouraging because they've obviously got to get over to Saudi. But these guys who are coming in first will see an opportunity because they're getting a rare opportunity to play people at their end of the ranking, or a lot of amateur players are in there. So everyone coming in at the start will see this as a chance to get at least one win under the belt, or hopefully a few more once they get on a roll. I picked up, a few. We won't get into too many of the either ors from the second round onwards because you can't preview games that you don't know who's going to be in them. But there are a handful of the very first round, that caught the eye for me anyway. Liam Davies against Ken Doherty, lovely one to start. Battle of the generations. That might even be a generation between those two. So that'll be interesting. And a note to Liam, we mentioned before I had some stinking draws in those qualifiers. And when there are a lot of amateur players knocking around here and sort of the Middle Eastern amateur players wild cards. So for him to get a former world champion, not ideal for him, I don't think, but interesting game. Another interesting one, I thought, two of the young European talents, Bulksha Revez against Julian Boyko. That'll be a good watch, I imagine. As will Julian Leclerc against Dylan Emery, two young, exciting players as well. And not so young, but still just as exciting, Jimmy White against Mohamed Shahab. Jimmy will be over there, and that's a tough one for him, actually. He's not one of the wildcard players, Shahab. He actually beat Stan Moody in World Championship qualifying, didn't he? Looked quite good doing it. So Jimmy will fancy his chances as he always does, but that's not an easy one. And mentioning Stan, he's playing one of the Saudi wildcards, but this must be the first time in his professional career that he's playing someone younger than him, because Stan's playing a 14-year-old from Saudi Arabia.
Oh God!
So that'll be interesting. And I've never seen this guy play. Obviously, I'm not going to pretend that I've. But you'd fancy Stan to come through that, and then he'd be facing Liam Pullen in the next round. So we spoke to him on air about their sort of rivalry they have already from the junior days, so that could be interesting. And then obviously the female players are coming in at the start, so they've got some interesting games. The one I noted out, Mink Nutrat's playing a chap called Kasai Hamed Sharif from Libya, who I found a few results, and he's never pulled up too many trees, so that might be a good chance for Mink to get a win on the board in this event. So yeah, some interesting ones early on, and then as we go through the tiers, the bigger and bigger names come in. But yeah, there's definitely enough there to be tuning in for from the off, for my money.
Yeah, and obviously there's going to be an immense amount of interest in this tournament. I mean, listen, I've expressed my view a number of times on this podcast now. I've never been greatly comfortable with the snooker or any sport going to Saudi Arabia on moral grounds. Having said that, I've always believed that this would be a more palatable event than the last one in the spring. And my view is largely unchanged. Let me point you the way of some articles that do outline similar concerns. I think it's important this view continues to be expressed. One is by Tommy Conlon, if you want to look that up, in the Irish Independent, titled "Deep Pockets Line the Green Bays." And the other is in The Spectator, which is titled "Has Snooker Sold Its Soul?" And that's from Jawad Iqbal. So Saudi Arabia coming up, that is on Eurosport. So we're back to a more traditional way of watching it. And it's for us in Europe, in sort of Central Europe, and us in Northern Europe, it's prime time, isn't it? There's not a great deal of time change. So similar to the event we saw in March, there'll be a lot of the evening viewing, and no question that the money will attract a lot of the headlines. I mean, and of course, it has raised a thing which I know a lot of people seem to be engaged by, which is this bitches over the rankings, Phil, because it could really be skew whiff. Some people may argue, well, I won an amazing event, why shouldn't I get 500,000? But obviously, with some events now being, there's such a weight towards them. And obviously the home nations, maybe other events starting to pale in comparison a little bit. So it's definitely an issue. It's not one that I lose a great amount of sleep over, but I know it's exercising quite a lot of people. So maybe there'll be a change somewhere on the line. Who knows? But I say 500,000 for the winner is eye catching, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah, there's been talk for a while about changing the ranking systems to go back to, I think, probably a points-based system rather than cash. And yeah, this tournament is likely to speed that up, if anything, because that's going to make a huge difference. But I always think a lot of people's complaints about the ranking system are that it rewards winners more than tournament winners more than it necessarily does reward consistency through the season. And I understand that argument. Like if you get to the last 16 of every tournament but end there, then you're probably unlikely to be in the top 16. But really, if your results are in the top 16 of every tournament, you should be in the top 16. Whereas you'd be debunked by people who aren't consistent but win the odd tournament. So I understand the argument, but at the same time, the hardest thing to do in the sport is win tournaments. And there's an argument to say that they should be handsomely rewarded for that. So yeah, I understand people's issues with the ranking system, but I also, whenever I look at the world rankings, it's pretty rare that I think, oh, they don't look right. I don't think he should be. There's the odd ones sometimes that look a bit false, but they never look wildly off what I think they should look like. So I don't have a massive problem with it really, but yeah, I think it's probably likely to change relatively soon. And yeah, look, I'm the same as you. I've never been entirely comfortable with Saudi Arabia's involvement. We have to cover it on the sporting front, and it's going to be a great tournament. I've got no doubt about that. But yeah, that doesn't mean the other things go away, and that's still what we think. I was reading a really good piece. It was mainly about boxing, where the involvement has been far greater than in snooker, from Tris Dixon, who's a great journalist, used to be the editor of Boxing News. So if you look that up, I think he wrote it on Boxing Scene, actually. But some very interesting stuff about the worries that he has about the level of involvement and power that Saudi have starting to wield in the boxing world. And there's obviously massive benefits to it, but some potential downsides that is very interesting to read about. And yeah, I mean, this is a funny story, really, but it shows how like sort of mad it can be. I was speaking to Mark Allen. He's saying that he enjoyed his trip to Saudi in that last one, in the invitational one, but it was odd that he was ready to play, and then the game got postponed by a significant period at the last minute because the event organizer decided they wanted to change the carpet. They didn't like the carpet, wanted a different one. So they were just waiting around for quite a long time for this new carpet to be put in, which didn't even look that much different from the previous one. But yeah, that's not a reason not to have a tournament somewhere. But it's the kind of madness that could ensue when you've got people who are used to getting whatever they want. But yeah, on a sporting front, I can't say I'm not looking forward to it. It's going to be a fantastic event, and more than one person's going to leave very happy. 100 grand for the semis, like the World Championship. A few people are going to have very nice weeks.
Indeed, and that's the tournament coming up then. Snooker's new fourth major in Saudi Arabia. And Phil, I think we're ticking towards the end. We feel like we've done coming up to about an hour now, which is generally our target, I think. And that's maybe where most podcasts tend to like to aim for in terms of length. I mean, everyone's a bit different, but that's kind of fairly standard. There's been some Q Tour news, isn't there? I think, which we should reflect on.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I think we recorded before the first Q Tour event was played at the Northern Snooker Centre in Leeds, one of our favourite clubs, of course, and brilliantly won by Andres.
One of your favourite bloody clubs.
Yeah, one of my favourite cities as well. But yeah, Andres Petrov, great win for him. Obviously, was been on the tour the last 2 years, dropped off, but great start to his returning to the amateur scene. Beat Ryan Thomason 4-3 in the final. I think a lot of his games were 4-3 actually. And obviously, all the games being over that short format, and a lot of very talented players. So, yeah, fantastic for him, and great win for Ryan actually to get to the final. But certainly well done to Andres, getting his bid to return straight to the tour off to the perfect start.
It's always very good value, isn't he, on social media as well? I think always very entertaining. Always takes you feels like you're right in the heart of what he's up to, and so yeah, many congratulations. And I think we're ticking round to any other business. And well, I must say, I made a point, didn't I, said to you before? I really want to let people know that don't yet that an episode of Parkinson that we mentioned when sadly Ray Reardon died recently will be shown on the BBC this weekend. It's on BBC 4 on Saturday night at 11:15 in the evening, and then available on the BBC iPlayer. I know it's a bit UK centric, but in saying that, there are more and more ways to watch the iPlayer now. I mean, I was at the Paris Olympics, and someone told me, if you're just on normal 4G and 5G, you seem to be able to listen to everything, which I did, which I couldn't do if I was on a fixed Wi-Fi in the hotel or Airbnb. And then I realised I could watch it. So I think there will be ways, and with a bit of luck, it'll be on YouTube soon enough as well. But Michael Parkinson with Ray Reardon, that should be a great watch on the BBC. And would you like me to sing?
I didn't know that was going to come. Yes, absolutely.
I'm a bit more of a regular singer than I think people might realise. And this is the reason I'm going to sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Phil Haig. Happy birthday to you. Very formal use of surname from me there as well. And well, not very tuneful, but another year on the clock, Colonel. Well done. you had a big wedding to celebrate, not your birthday, just happened to coincide. But I know it was fun.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for that. That was quite tuneful, quite impressive. Yeah, no, it was my birthday on Friday, which was very pleasant. And then had a lovely wedding down in the Cotswolds for a friend of mine on the Saturday. So no, it's been a very nice weekend. Along with the snooker was excellent as well. So yeah, very enjoyable. Thank you very much. And
No,
yeah,
that's right.
survived another year, all going well.
Well, I didn't leave you presentless, did I? I very rarely do. You got that lovely video from me from Hecla in Iceland, didn't you? And this time I've been in Ireland. I have been crying my way around Ireland as usual, Phil. There's a lot of laughs in that country, but usually a few tears as well. Based in Cork, while there, I visited the Crucible Club, and there were some great photos on the wall. I mean, what I sent you was an incredibly dated picture of Judd. They've made it look like Judd was a pro in the 70s, haven't they? It's absolutely brilliant photo of Judd there. But yeah, very busy in there. My goodness, what a busy club. They're very proud of Aaron Hill, quite rightly, as they should be, who grew up playing there. And I said to you on text, didn't I? I think you said I found it quite amusing that most people, I think, tend to see me as basically a sort of dishevelled Mr. Bean. That's essentially what they see me as, which is not that much of a compliment for me, but it's sort of true. But I did, however, get a few sort of wary looks. It was sort of a dark, rainy night, and we doing other things during the day. So I just made it there for near the end. And I said I got a few. They saw me as more like Arthur Daly, a few of the locals there. But never mind. It was it was a nice sort of setup, and always good to visit a snooker club. And yeah, loved it. Loved it in Cork, a place I know of old actually, but I'd never been to Cove or Kinsale before, and that was brilliant. Great picture of Ken Doherty actually and Steve Davis in the on one of the walls of a coffee shop I went to in Cove as well. You can't escape the game. I think I even asked the ladies. I said, "Where?" One of them didn't know who they were at all. I never realised who they were. And I think it was actually the owner of the coffee shop that had met them somewhere else. That was, I think, the story that came through. But he was very proudly, as you would be, nice picture of Ken and Steve. So the game's never too far away, Phil, wherever we are. But that was great, and yeah, back very much in snooker mode now. What else to say? Football well and truly back. And I enjoyed watching the climax of the Women's Open Golf at St Andrews on Sunday, and a fine victory for Lydia Ko. Elsewhere in sport, the US Open is just getting underway in New York. And we should say, Phil, the next couple of days, the Paris Paralympics getting underway. And that's live here in the UK. Again, UK centric, I know, but I know wherever you are, should be easy enough to find out your own broadcast arrangements. That's on Channel 4 here in the UK. So for the next couple of weeks, well, we thought we saw some, we did see some inspirational stories at the Olympics, but obviously you get some incredible stories at the Paralympics, don't you? So it's always, well, I say humbling. It is that. It's inspirational. It's amazing to see some people that have, suffered so greatly in life winning and do it, just competing on that great stage. So I'm sure many of you will enjoy that games. And yeah. Not anything else to say on the sporting front for you? You been enjoying much else apart from the snooker?
No, not really. No, I've just been enjoying a lot of the snooker. As I said, it was perfect timing for me last week. I was watching it all through the day, so that was great. But yeah, no, I always look forward to Paralympics. It really sort of, yeah, inspiration is the right word, and stops you whinging about stuff when you see the people.
For about 5 minutes.
Yeah. But what these guys are achieving, absolutely unbelievable stuff. So yeah, always enjoy that. And we may well get to hear our friend Rob Walker on there. He's normally on there. I hope he's not had a year off or something this time, but he's usually commentating on some of that. I know I heard him briefly during the Olympics on some race walking I had on one day, and that was the only time I'd heard some Walker on there. But hopefully he'll be at the Paralympics as well, and doing a fine job as always. But yeah, no, watched a bit of football, watched a bit of cricket, but mainly snooker. But it's non-stop as always. You're never short of stuff to watch in the sporting front.
Oh, it ended up being a tense old test match, didn't it? It started with everyone saying, "Oh, it's too bloody easy," which, let's face it, the West Indies were not good opposition. I mean, that was a poor series. But Sri Lanka looked like it might be going a bit the same way. And in the end, England sort of limped home and made a bit heavy weather of it. But yeah, should say as well, Phil, some genuinely sad news today that Sven-Göran Eriksson has died at the age of 76. And well, what a life in football, and just in a human way, what amazing dignity he's shown to us all in all the months recently where we've known Sven has been terminally ill. So sad news. Rest in peace, Sven. His contribution to football and our sporting lives will obviously be long remembered. I think we should go. Saudi Arabia coming up, of course, and we'll return. We were saying during Saudi. Don't worry, folks. This hasn't become a fortnightly podcast, by the way. I know it seems like that. It's still a weekly podcast. We just had one fiasco where it didn't happen, and then I was away. But now, honestly, maybe with the 1 week I can think of that might be an issue, but generally all the way through now, throughout the autumn and up to Christmas, we intend to be back on generally a Monday, which we're doing now. That's still our sort of preferred day. So I think people will let us off, hopefully, in the summer, Phil. It's always a bit of a mad time, isn't it? Especially this one, it feels like, with the Olympics and other things. But yeah, really going back to back now. After Saudi, back here, of course, the English, which I'm intending to go to. It's not far from me in Brentwood. And then the British, even Northern Ireland's not that far away. So brilliant. This is the time we love, isn't it? When we get right back into snooker. Feels like almost on a week-to-week basis. And lots of stuff to relish.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, the season, the professional calendar really gets busy now, and as does all the other ones. We've got the UK Women's Championship coming up. Q Tour really is busy because next one's next month in Bulgaria, I think. So yeah, plenty coming up. Oh, that made me think of one thing. When people may have seen the interview I did with Jason Ferguson, touching on a few things in the game, and one thing I was asking him about was Zhao Xingtong, because his ban is ending very soon, start of September, and then he's sort of free to try and get back on the tour for next season. And I did ask specifically, like, is he sort of free to have a crack at these Q tours coming up quite soon? And Jason didn't know his specific plans about what routes he wants to take to the tour, but he said it was certainly a possibility. So we won't see it because it's not broadcast, but Zhao could be in action pretty soon, which will be very interesting to see how he gets on.
Yes. Did that go live? That's article since we were last in it. Probably did now.
I think
it
so.
Probably
I
did.
had a string of them I put in over a few days. I think that was after we last did it.
Yeah, that was really good. There was loads in there. A few people seem to think that not just Jason, although certainly Jason, a few others making a slightly more positive noises about the Crucible. Maybe. I mean, I'm not quite sure that was my translation of it. I mean, maybe a little bit more. We'll see. But
yeah, I mean, he said talks were positive, and he loves Sheffield and is keen to stay, but it's still up in the air, isn't it?
We, of course, were on the Totally Snookered vodcast, still available to watch with Michael Day. I gave Gary Wilson a world final appearance. Bloody generous, isn't it?
That was very good of you.
That was brilliant. Yeah. He'll have great memories of that, old Gary. What a couple of days that was for him in Sheffield. Marvellous. Best of 35, best, biggest match in the game. And that could be a new sort of thing, really. Just making up results, making up past wins. Remember that marvellous final that was just a mistake. We all make them.
We do. But that was very fun with Michael. I appreciate the invite onto there. Very much enjoyed that. And you can watch that on I should have checked this out, but on Totally Snooker website, but it's also on a TV channel as well, but I'm sure that's come and gone now.
It was on Shots TV.
That's it.
But every time Michael thinks it, I think, God, is that a special order shot channel? Because they're called the Shots. But anyway, it's not that. But we really enjoy that. He's a good man, Michael. Does lots of great stuff. So many snooker podcasts to listen to these days, aren't there, as well? Some really good stuff out there. Lots of different interviews and great stuff to read. So no doubt that will continue. Shall we go? Because I'm definitely rambling. Well, I'm just killing. Yeah. I thought I was sort of killing time on our own podcast, which is, I don't know why. Why are we doing that? Let's go. I salute you and say cheers. And we'll be back during Saudi to update listeners on what's happening so far in that event, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a huge week, and I know. I mean, we've spoken about all the stuff that's going on with that plenty of times, but the players can't wait to get over there and get involved and have a chance of winning big, and it's gonna be very interesting. So, yep, enjoy watching it.
We'll be back with you next week then, here on Talking Snooker. Keep your thoughts coming. We've had some nice correspondence there on Xi-an. Anything on Saudi coming up, or anything you're looking forward to in the season, any snooker opinions, always welcome. TalkingSnooker@yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. For now, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.